Welcome back to NestGen Xpress. We're here at booth 3909 at Exponential 2023 here in wonderful Denver, Colorado, my hometown. Welcome you all. We're here with 8,000 of our closest friends, and we are ready to talk to, you know what, I'm actually really excited about this one. We're going to talk to Dan O'Shea, Iris Automation Director of Global Sales and Customer Success. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. All right, so we're going to do this. We have a couple questions for you. We're going to obviously talk about Cassia G, clearly, but we also want to talk about some other things. Maybe get a little deep, get a little personal. We never know. Let's do it. Let's do it. All right,
Yeah.
so first question. So why, because I use visual observers, right? Most of my students are visual observers. And I'm like, look,
Sure.
why is using visual observers only a short-term fix? And why would a tech-based solution be required?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately it comes down to two things, right? Safety and scalability, right? And so the safety part of it is hopefully apparent because the studies that have been put out there about human visual observers, I mean, humans just aren't that good. Okay, so we as humans are good at spotting that there's an aircraft out there, but we're pretty bad at determining whether or not it actually poses a relative risk. And our field of view is pretty narrow. We get about a 2-degree field of view, and then outside of that, we're getting into peripheral vision that's reliant on movement. So with a human visual observer not looking at the right place at the right time, it becomes difficult to identify that threat, and then it becomes really hard to determine whether that threat is really a threat. How far away is it? How high is it? And and will that pose an actual risk to the operation? So an AI-based system like Cassia G or any of the other detect and avoid systems that are exhibiting here at the show are going to be able to give more of a precision, give you more precision about where that threat is and how much of a threat it represents to your actual operation. So safety is paramount with any drone operation, but especially BVLOS operations. And so being able to identify that threat early, being able to know exactly where it is, and in the case of Cassia G, what it is, we'll talk about that later, I think, but is absolutely critical. The other part of this is just scalability, the human factor, right? So we talk with lots and lots of police departments, right? There is a massive crunch and a massive shortage of officers here in the United States. And so if you have, police departments looking to scale BVLOS operations and they need to have officers on rooftops, well, those are officers that now can't do their regular jobs. And similarly, if you're doing like a 50-mile pipeline inspection, do you want to have humans out there every step of the way? At a certain point, it becomes, do you have the human resources to actually accomplish that? And do you have the cost, like the budget to be able to pay those people?
Right.
So in those two instances, that's why we need these digital solutions, like Cassia G, to be able to, present that safer argument, that safer operation, and to be able to provide scalability.
And I've been a visual observer. I can tell you it's fairly boring.
Yeah.
And knowing now that like everything right here is like amazing. Everything out here, I'm a T-Rex.
Yeah.
There you go. That's good to know. That's good. No, it's good. It's good. It's good. Okay, so what if we were to give Cassia G a superpower, what would it be? I gotta know. Can it detect UFOs?
Okay. It could.
Whoa.
But, okay, so, all right, little background on Iris Automation, right? Like, so when we were founded, we started with onboard detect and avoid systems, right? And so the way that our system fundamentally works is we do classification of intruders.
Yes.
So we'll spot a moving object and we'll drop it into a box. Bird, plane, drone, helicopter, right? So in the initial days of Iris, we had another classifier.
Did it?
UFO.
Oh. Okay.
For the stuff that we just didn't know what the heck it was. So yes, we'll detect UFOs. We'll probably classify it as like a bird or a helicopter or something. But yeah, we'll do it. But no,
Is it because you ran out of fingers?
maybe.
Okay.
So, but that honestly is the superpower of a system like Cassia. Any of the iterations, but Cassia G too. And what it comes down to is that we'll look at a moving object and we'll be able to positively identify what it is in addition to where it is.
Okay.
So, when we talk about like airspace deconfliction, some people care a lot about birds. So if you're at a vertiport, for instance, you don't want to take off into a flock of birds. Great. And so you have a classifier to identify that. If you don't care about birds at all, turn off that classifier. So now we're able to provide some functionality and be able to identify these threats and provide that information in real time to the user so that this remote piloting command, potentially across the country, can say, oh, that aircraft, that's actually 747 flying at 7,000 feet. I don't care about it, right? Or that's a sparrow that just overflew my drone nest. Okay, well, it's gone now. I don't care about it. Or, oh yeah, that's a Bell 212 that's like circling my operational area. I care a lot about that. And that's really what the differentiator of our system is, that we're able to make those positive identifications.
That makes sense. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, actually. Because every single time, I remember just being on radio and it's like, you're hearing, oh, blah, 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 no factor. Blah, 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 no factor. And like, I'm questioning the no factor a little bit, but I'm also, it's not helpful. It's not helpful information. I don't need that in my ear. I don't really care. I appreciate you doing your job, but I would rather have the software just do that for me.
Right. And that's the point.
I know. Okay, so tell me a story. Can you tell me a story where Cassia G helped prevent actually a potentially dangerous situation?
So I got stories about the onboard system. The ground-based system is relatively new, but I got other stories about the ground-based system.
Let's talk about that one.
So we recently did a really, really impactful approval with the City of Pearland Police Department. And so why this was so important was because Cassia is named as part of this waiver as being an alternative means that applies to the 91.113B see and avoid requirement. Okay, that's a mouthful. So what does that mean? It means that we are an acceptable substitution to individual observers. And we get named as that, which is awesome. And so when we were doing the initial testing in Pearland, Texas, we set up a system on top of a water tower, permanently installed it there. And the police officer that we were working with, Brandon Carr, he called up all the local PDs around him. Houston PD called up their helicopter company, called the local airports, and was like, guys, I want you to beat this. Come in at 100 feet, come in at 200 feet, 300 feet, 400 feet. I want you to try to beat this system. And it couldn't do it, which was awesome. And so, like, it does what it needs to do, for sure. With the onboard system, actually, we have another partner here that has our system integrated into their drone. And they were telling a story like how they were given a demo for a customer. Aircraft took off and then immediately descended. They were like, what's that? No. Tried to take off again, immediately descended. And what had happened was, and then all of a sudden tried to take off again, immediately descended, helicopter buzzed right over their test site. So literally, our system was picking up the helicopter, initiating the avoidance maneuver.
No.
Yeah, exactly. Right, exactly. And they had no idea because it was flying so low, wasn't broadcasting on ADS-B, coming in over the treetops. Yeah. It's pretty neat.
That is pretty cool. That's a little superpowered.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little annoying if you're like, come on, man. And you're like, I'm so glad you did.
Are you kidding me?
I'm so sorry.
Find that helicopter pilot and buy him a beer.
Right?
Yeah, because that was a demo for a customer. Yeah, yeah.
Amazing. Well, that's really cool.
Perfect. We did not plan that.
No. Why? How would you plan that?
No, you couldn't.
Okay, so this one may be a little bit obvious, but so how does the Cassia G system help pilots and ground-based operators comply with current regulations? You had that big mouthful of blah, blah, blah.
Well, exactly. So, I mean, the one thing that we're trying to do every step of the process is we want buy-in from the regulator.
Sure.
And especially, we're a North American company, so we're, working mostly with the FAA, but also Transport Canada, discussions with EASA. And the whole point is that we want them to be comfortable with what we're trying to do and what our customers trying to do, right? And so, we've built out our system to ASTM performance standards. We've made sure that we've done extensive real-world testing, over 17,000 real-world encounters to prove out our data sets, millions of encounters in simulation. And then we did third-party validation testing with Virginia Tech to prove out our test methodology, to be able to say, yes, this is real. And so we're doing all of that, and of course, lending lots of regulatory support to get our customers over the finish line. But the real big thing that we're trying to do with our customers is get them engaged with the FAA early. And the whole idea is that if you want to make sure, yes, you want to make sure that you're flying within the rule set as much as possible, but as soon as you start getting ambitious and start going for I want to fly 50 miles beyond visual line of sight, you want the FAA on your side. And more importantly, the FAA wants to be on your side early. They want to understand that. From their position, yes, they are charged with protecting the NAS, right? They want this airspace to be the safest in the world, and every regulator feels the same way about their own individual airspace. But the FAA also realizes they have the monumental task of creating new regulation, and they need to understand what's out there. And so, on the one hand, building that relationship early with the FAA allows them to understand the safety and efficacy of the operation so that they know when they give their stamp of approval that they're doing so with a safe operation with safe systems that have been validated and tested and are going to ensure that there's no damage or loss of life to people or systems, right? But they also want to be able to be aware of these systems so that when they're crafting those rule sets in the future, they have, examples so that they can point to say this was a safe operation, and they want to be able to get the data from those operations to back up. Yeah. So they want quantitative and qualitative information to back up, future rulemaking.
Just kidding. No, drop the mic. Good stuff, though. Okay, but let's talk about impacts and outcomes.
Sure.
So what kind of impact do you see a ground-based digital visual observer having on the overall aviation industry in the coming years, and how do you see the technology evolving?
Whoa. Okay, this is good. I see it's huge, right? So the FAA in particular, right, is making strides towards shielded airspace and trying to make BD loss operations easier while still staying safe. So a system like ours, a DAA system, is able to, the whole idea is to get beyond shielding, right? So if you're stuck within that 50-foot, for some folks like doing inspection services, 50 feet, that's probably more than enough. But for folks that need to get higher up, police departments, certain types of inspection services, mapping, and whatnot, then you need to be flying higher. And then we get back into the question of scalability, right? How can you justify putting 10 VOs along a 15-mile pipeline? You just can't, right? The cost just doesn't work out that way.
No.
And then we get back to the safety argument as well. So ultimately, as the industry develops, as drones continue to proliferate, then systems like ours are going to make sure that we maintain those scalabilities. In terms of the evolution of these systems over time, I think what we're going to see is start more sensor fusions and incorporations of multiple different types of technology into localized, well, in our case, nodes, right? We're closely watching the development of a remote ID, and when that rolls out in September, I'll have to put a remote ID sensor inside our node, right? Because we already have vision system, we have ADS-B, and then remote ID, that just makes it even more comprehensive, right? And then, of course, working with folks like FlytBase and through the FlightNow system, now all of a sudden we could talk about multiple sensor integration. So now a system like ours, an electro-optical system, has its there are absolute upsides in terms of classification precision and low-level detections, right? But there are downsides to electrical optical systems, right? Relative range and, of course, weather conditions and whatnot. And so now if you're able to start fusing things like a radar into that as well, into a singular system, now you've created a safer operation with more flexibility, right? So this is kind of where I see things going. I see a continued industry push for collaboration that's going to result in multi-layered detections. And of course, just from us as a company perspective, we're constantly doing updates to our system. We do at least 3 software updates a year. And we're always tweaking performance, building new classifiers, rolling out new features and functionality. And of course, every other company at this show today is going to be saying the same thing in some way, shape, or form, right? Everybody's trying to improve, and we're all on the same page in terms of collaborating to get the regulator comfortable. And so I think we're going to continue to see those sensor fusions, those joint collaborations to get the drone industry really up and moving with starting seeing scaled operations globally. So there's my mic drop.
Sensor fusion.
Yeah.
Man, Dan, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for your insights. Having a little fun with us here. It's day 2, towards the end of day 2, exponential. We're just having a good time here on NestGen Xpress. This is just kind of the place to be.
We're just spiraling the drain.
Spiraling? Yeah. No, we're not spiraling. No, look, I may be done, but Basali's not done, and we're going to keep this going all night long. Just kidding. That's all you. That's just for you. But thank you so much for joining us. We will catch you on the next episode, NestGen Xpress.
Thank you.
For you.